morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to our weekly review of how religion impacts humanity. This week's headlines. More than 20 people were killed in an attack on Kabul military hospital. A prominent Islamic scholar was sentenced to 6.5 years in a Russian prison. In Bangladesh, artists and intellectuals defended musicians accused of insulting Islam. Nigerian Muslims torched Emmanuel International Church in Mpilipili. The Saudi Arabian Ministry of Hajj and Umrah has banned children from under 12 from entering the Grand Mosque of Mecca. The UK government restrictions on conversions therapy fall short of what is needed. The Northern Ireland regulator decided not to act against a conversion therapy charity. The Church of England received £750 million of public money in the last 5 years. In a US war among Catholics, Pope Francis sides with Biden. Queer Ghanaians are fighting the homophobia bill. Evolution is accepted by a majority of Americans at last. The Day of the Dead parade returns to Mexico City after COVID. This week, we're going to start with our new correspondent, Nuria Khan's report on Islamic affairs. Over to you, Nuria.
This is the Global Atheist News Islamic Report. I'm Nuria Khan. More than 20 people have been killed and at least 16 injured in a gun and bomb assault on a military hospital in the Afghan capital, Kabul. Attackers targeted the 400-bed Sardar Daud Khan hospital, starting with 2 massive explosions outside the buildings, officials have said. Gunmen then broke into the hospital grounds, witnesses have said. An affiliate of Islamic State Khorasan later said it had carried out the attack. Photographs and video footage from Kabul showed a plume of smoke over the area and recorded the sounds of gunfire. A doctor in the building told the AFP news agency he had been sent to seek shelter in a safe room during the attack and could hear guns being fired constantly. Saeed Ahad told broadcaster EVN that one of the blasts was a suicide attack. As an Afghan citizen, I'm really tired of this war, suicide and explosions, he said. How long do we have to endure this misery? The Taliban spokesman Bilal Karimi told the BBC that fighters from ISK had entered the compound after detonating the first explosion at the entrance gate. Mr. Karimi said Taliban fighters shot and killed 4 ISK attackers and captured 1 alive. Taliban spokesman Zahibullah Mujahid meanwhile told Reuters news agency that Taliban special forces dropped by helicopter and had stopped the attackers from entering the hospital itself, killing them at the entrance or in the building's courtyard, as the assailants were killed in 15 minutes, he said. Witnesses quoted by Reuters said they saw 2 helicopters over the area during the assault. The news agency reports that this would be one of the first times Taliban forces have used aircraft captured from the previous Western-backed governments during an operation. The attack is the latest to hit Afghanistan since the Taliban seized control in August, after the US withdrew its last troops from the country. A court in Russia's Tatarstan region has sentenced a prominent Islamic scholar to 6.5 years in prison for running a branch of a banned religious group. Gabdurrahman Nomov was sentenced by a court in Kazan for leading a branch of the Islamic Noor movement, his lawyer Ruslan Najiyev told reporters on November 2nd. Naumov is well known in Tatarstan as a teacher at the Russian Islamic University and the former imam of a mosque in Kazan. He was arrested in March 2020 and charged with being the leader of the Noor movement in Tatarstan, where Turkic-speaking ethnic Tatars live. The Noor movement was founded in Turkey by prominent Islamic scholar Said Nursi, who before his death in 1960 had advocated against communist secularism and for the integration of modern science and logic into Islam. The movement has millions of followers around the globe, especially in Turkey, but has been banned in Russia since 2008. Russian authorities have said the group promotes the creation of an Islamic state that encompasses all Turkic-speaking areas and countries. A well-known secular activist on Tuesday called on the Bangladesh Bar Council to withdraw the membership of a lawyer who has been filing police complaints against musicians, alleging that their performances insult Islam. The latest case filed by lawyer Imrul Hassan is against members of the rock band Merdol, claiming that the song they performed at a recent concert distorted the Islamic call to prayer. Robin Ahsan, an activist and book publisher, said Imrul was inciting religious conflict. Cancellation of the enrollment of lawyer Imrul Hassan is a must to save our country's songs, Baal songs, and our culture, he wrote in a Facebook post. The manner in which he's filing cases one after the other is not a healthy practice at all. Through such activities, the lawyer is inciting religious intolerance, he said. An organizer of a progressive citizens group, Shahbag Against Oppression, Robin said he and others would take to the streets if their demands were not met. If any member of the Merdol becomes the subject of harassment, we will hold demonstrations demanding the arrest of the lawyer, he said. Imrul's earlier police reports against Rita Diwan, a performer of traditional Bengali folk songs, led her to go into hiding after receiving death threats. As a lawyer, he, Imrul, has the right to sue on any issue, but such cases violate the spirit of Bangladesh's constitution, as every artist has the freedom to have his or her views. Ghulam Qudus, the head of an umbrella group of cultural organizations, told Benar News. Other cultural activists supported the band members by creating a hashtag #StandWithMegdal for all social media platforms. Angry people believed to be Muslims at Mpili Makanjira in Magnochi, Nigeria, have torched Emmanuel International Church after the church's pastor, Gladson Njikera, allegedly drew a picture, saying that the image depicts the God of the Muslims. Equipped with stones, panjas, axes, and other materials, the group descended on the house of the pastor to seek clarification on why he degraded their Allah in that way. The source said the pastor is said to have drawn the picture and kept it in his hardcover book, and today he sent his child to make a photocopy of some documents which were in the hardcover. Unfortunately, when the photocopy service provider opened the book, he saw the drawing and in no time showed this to his friends. It was from there that people ganged up and charged towards the pastor's house. The pastor, upon sensing danger, escaped, leaving behind his wife and children. He has since lost all his property in the fracas. The Saudi Arabian Ministry of Hajj and Umrah has barred children under the age of 12 from entering the Grand Mosque of Mecca. According to the guidelines issued by the ministry, the decision has been taken as children under the age of 12 do not meet the criteria to be granted Umrah and prayer permits. The ministry said children belonging to the said age bracket will not be allowed to use Tawakkalna, the official COVID-19 application in the kingdom, to prevent the spread of the virus. The guidelines further said that no one can enter the Masjid al-Haram without seeking prior permission from the Saudi government. And now, back to you, John.
Thank you, Nuria. The UK government launched a consultation on restricting so-called conversion therapy, but its proposals fall short of the full ban needed to prevent harm. In 2018, the government committed to this under the LGBT Action Plan. However, what it has now announced does not adequately protect against conversion therapy in religious settings, where the majority of such practices occur. Therefore, under such plans, most providers of these pseudo-scientific and harmful practices will be allowed to continue. There is strong evidence that conversion therapy is harmful. This can be particularly true in places of worship. Conversion therapy has been widely rejected by the medical community. There is no evidence that it works, and it can cause significant damage to mental health. Such practices legitimize homophobic, biphobic, and transphobic attitudes by falsely equating LGBT identities to a pathology that can be fixed or cured. According to the UK government, 7% of LGBT people have undergone or been offered such practices. 51% of those who have undergone conversion therapy report that it was conducted in a religious setting. Such activities can include exorcisms and forced prayer. The proposals include measures to target conversion therapy with a new criminal offence. However, this applies only where it is committed against under 18s or those who have ostensibly not consented, as if it is possible to give free and informed consent to a practice that does not actually work, or if they are unable to consent. The government also plans to introduce conversion therapy protection orders, increase support for victims, and restrict the promotion of these practices. Meanwhile, in Northern Ireland, the charity regulator has refused to take action against a Christian organisation which promotes change-oriented therapy for gay people, after the National Secular Society raised its case. Last year, the NSS wrote to the Charity Commission for Northern Ireland to urge it to review Core Issue Trust's status as a registered charity. Now, the Commission has said it has closed an inquiry file into the case, and it will not be taking the NSS's concerns forward at this time. NSS Chief Executive Stephen Evans said, "The Charity Commission for Northern Ireland appears to have concluded that Core Issues Trust should remain a charity on wholly inadequate grounds. Bogus therapies which encourage people to change or suppress their sexuality are harmful, unethical, and widely discredited. It beggars belief that groups that promote them can enjoy the tax breaks and public recognition that charitable status brings. The case also shows the need for a rethink of religion's privileged status in charity law, which would make it easier to hold groups like Core Issue Trust to account." Over £750 million of public money has been given to the Church of England over the past 5 years, despite its own investments topping £10 billion, new figures reveal. More than £750 million was received across the church in the form of grants and tax rebates, despite it holding investments and cash of more than £10 billion. The figures were released by Second Church Estates Commissioner Andrew Selous in response to a series of written parliamentary questions from Labour MP Kerry McCarthy. In September, Selous, who as the Second Estates Commissioner speaks for the C of E in the House of Commons, called for even greater government financial support for repairs across its 16,000 parish churches. But the most recent answers have forced the C of E to acknowledge for the first time the sum of money already being provided and how. Over the last 5 years, the C of E received £468 million in gift aid, £118 million in listed place of worship grants, £102 million in National Lottery Heritage funding, and more than £50 million in culture recovery grants. In total, these sums already exceed the amount Selous states is being spent on necessary building repairs. Alongside the figures for public support, the C of E, also for the first time, detailed the amount of investments and cash retained by the church commissioners, dioceses and cathedrals. Cathedrals held cash and investments of £574 million, the diocese £1.8 billion, and the church commissioners £7.6 billion. The Church Commissioners for England is a registered charity which has the 5th largest income of all religious charities and the largest income of all charities with exclusively religious charitable objects in England and Wales. While there is a significant and growing maintenance deficit across its parish churches, the C of E is directing significant sums into evangelism. Figures presented to the C of E's synod in September revealed £248 million was given out between 2017 and 2020 as part of the church's Renewal and Reform programme to attract new worshippers and begin new congregations, something which has not so far succeeded, according to the Archbishop of Canterbury. The National Secular Society has said that any further state handouts must be carefully scrutinised and fully justified to the taxpayer. NSS Chief Executive Stephen Evans said, "Taxpayers shouldn't be further burdened with propping up an ailing yet wealthy religious institution. Whilst the state can play a funding role in the conservation of heritage buildings, any such support should be based on need, especially in times of financial stringency. Significant sums of public money have been paid to a privileged institution that pleads poverty while spending millions on unsuccessful projects to recruit more members and evangelize to disinterested young people. State support is therefore indirectly subsidizing Anglican evangelism. No other religious institution is in such a privileged position to demand public support for its infrastructure. Any further state handouts must be carefully scrutinized and fully justified to the taxpayer." And now for a report from our Roman Catholic correspondent, Jason Sylvester.
I'm Jason Sylvester, aka Diogenes of Maybury, bringing you this week's Catholic Report. There is just one story this week, the meeting between Pope Francis and Joe Biden. Though their meeting was good-natured, predictably, dogmatic American bishops continue making noise about Biden's support for U.S. abortion laws, and threaten the withholding of communion for the president. Empty threats to anyone else, but possibly a useful mental coercion for brainwashed Catholics to keep them in line. Francis has previously chastised the bishops for politicizing the sacraments, saying last June, "Communion is not the reward of saints, but the bread of sinners." And following their meeting this week, Francis subtly rebuked the divisive bishops by giving Biden a pat on the head and calling him a good Catholic. The tactic of threatening the withholding of communion, or even going so far as excommunication, for politicians who go against Catholic doctrines is not confined to the U.S. It was used repeatedly in the Philippines for the decade leading up to the adoption of the Reproductive Health Bill in 2012. When a majority of professors at Ateneo, a Catholic university in Manila, signed a petition in support of the RH bill, the head of the Philippine Catholic Bishops Association called for the professors to be tried for heresy. Yes, a heresy trial in the 21st century. Thanks for watching, and if you like my reports, please check out my social media links and follow for more content. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Jason. As a controversial anti-LGBT bill makes its way through Ghana's parliament, reports of attacks against queer people have spiked. The draft law would criminalize everything from queer identity to advocacy. Vice News meets with the activists and public figures fighting for and against the bill. See this video.
Ghanaians united will never be divided. We want to acknowledge the fight of our LGBTQI siblings in Ghana.
With or without makeup, they see me. I am a target. A lot of people want to see me perish.
It is clear that it's no for us in this country. Irrespective of whatever the international community will think about that.
Homosexuality existed in Africa way before our colonial masters. So what is being imported is hate. What is being imported is homophobia.
Queer Ghanaians are going through the country's most intense crackdown yet.
LGBTQIAAP+.
A new bill making its way through Parliament would criminalize everything from queer identity to advocacy. It would disband all queer rights groups, on top of punishing a range of offenses that can carry up to 10 years in prison. Angel Maxine has protested the bill since it was introduced. She's Ghana's only openly trans musician, and if the bill passes, she could be jailed for 5 years.
So this is my home.
Okay.
This actually was like a worship center where my parents and my siblings we meet to have morning devotions, Sunday services. My father is a Christian, a reverend, but he believes in all religions. So if you come here, if it's Islam you want to read, you'll find it here. Buddhism, Judaism, Hinduism, Catholic, Pentecostal, whatever.
All the bases covered.
All the basic, everything is here.
Do you consider yourself religious?
I'm a religious person. Yes, very religious. Very, very.
How have your parents been throughout your journey?
Yeah, you see, from the beginning, it wasn't that easy. My father still doesn't understand me in a way. Of my mom, she's 100% in support of everything I do.
What do you think has been driving a lot of the homophobia and transphobia that we're seeing?
Yeah, you see, people are failing to understand. People are not ready to embrace change. They feel it's a Western culture and it's not aligned with our culture and our morals in Ghana. That's what they think.
Angel says she's been robbed, evicted, and attacked countless times in the past 5 years. So she's using music to call for queer acceptance.
I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. Called your best
The November-December edition of Skeptical Inquirer reports that the level of public acceptance of evolution in the United States is now solidly above the halfway mark, according to a new study based on a series of national public opinion surveys conducted over the past 35 years. From 1985 to 2010, there was a statistical dead heat between acceptance and rejection of evolution, said lead researcher John D. Miller of the Institute for Social Research at the University of Michigan. But acceptance then surged, becoming the majority position in 2016. Examining data over 35 years, the study consistently identified aspects of education, civic science literacy, taking college courses in science, and having a college degree as the strongest factors leading to the acceptance of evolution. Almost twice as many Americans held a college degree in 2018 as in 1988, said the co-author Mark Ackerman, a researcher at Michigan Engineering, the UM School of Information and Michigan Medicine. It's hard to earn a college degree without acquiring at least a little respect for the success of science. The researchers analyzed a collection of biannual surveys from the National Science Board, several national surveys funded by units of the National Science Foundations, and a series focused on adult civic literacy funded by NASA. Beginning in 1985, these national samples of US adults were asked to agree or disagree with this statement. Human beings as we know them today developed from earlier species of animals. The series of surveys showed that Americans were evenly divided on the question of evolution from 1985 to 2007. According to a 2005 study of the acceptance of evolution in 34 developed nations, only Turkey, at 27%, scored lower than the United States. But over the last decade, until 2019, the percentage of American adults who agreed with this statement increased from 40% to 54%. The current study consistently identified religious fundamentalism as the strongest factor leading to the rejection of evolution. While their numbers declined slightly in the last decade, approximately 30% of Americans continue to be religious fundamentalists as defined in the study. But even those who scored highest on the scale of religious fundamentalism shifted towards acceptance of evolution, rising from 8% in 1988 to 32% in 2019. Researcher Miller predicted that religious fundamentalism would continue to impede the public acceptance of evolution. Such beliefs are not only tenacious, but also increasingly politicized, he said, citing a widening gap between Republican and Democratic acceptance of evolution. As of 2019, 34% of conservative Republicans accepted evolution compared to 83% of liberal Democrats. Thousands of people have gathered in Mexico City to celebrate the annual Day of the Dead. Celebrations for Dia de Muertos usually take place around the 2nd of November, and it's a time when Mexican families honor deceased loved ones in the belief that their souls return to Earth to be with them. The parade in Mexico City is a more recent addition to the festivities and was inspired by the 2015 James Bond film Spectre. See this video. Free Thought Hour, my live Q&A show with this week's guest, M. Dolan Hickman, will be starting in a few minutes. So stay tuned to this channel. Dolan is a victim of authoritarian Christian parenting, and he's on a mission to prevent future harm. Come and ask him some questions. We will be back with our weekly news review on all our platforms at the same time next week. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, set the notifications, etc. This has been Global Atheist News. Thank you for watching.